Have you ever looked at your 401k statement and wondered why it's barely growing? You're definitely not alone. I've definitely had this experience in the past. This is why I don't have them anymore. And I'm here to really share with you what I learned about these programs. That way you can be more informed and make the best decision for you and your financial future. The first thing you got to dig into is the documents, right? At the beginning, most people hear that, hey, this company has a match of, we'll just say 6%, but they don't read anything beyond that. And what's beyond that is critical, right? Because there's a lot of companies out there that say they'll match up to 6%, but they say, but a max of $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000. So when you do your 401k and you're putting in 6%, you might be putting in 15,000 where they're actually only going to give you 5. Now, granted, it is free money, but we're going to talk about that here shortly too. So there is a caveat to all of it. So understand that the match isn't 100% and there's usually a cap on it. And the next part that most people miss in the documents is the vesting period. The 401k statements that I've been getting from clients recently is a vesting period of 5 years. Now, I don't know many people who stay in a job for 5 years. I mean, check LinkedIn, because every time I look at employment history on there, we all want to upgrade every 3 to 5 years because we know the stats on it. If we change companies, we get more money. If we stay at the same company, we're taking a pay cut. So we always want to upgrade. And the vesting period is key because some of them have a straight vesting period where you have to wait till that 5 years to get the money. Others have a stair step up. So that has a massive impact on what you're actually getting to keep. The statement always shows like you're fully vested, but that's not always the case. Now we just talked about the digging into, upgrading jobs. This is the number 2 part that people miss when it comes to their 401ks. Every time we upgrade jobs, we need to take the 401k at the old place and move it to the new place. Well, the old place is going to charge you for taking the money out, whether that's for withdrawing it completely and then adding the tax penalty on top of that, or that's to even just to roll it over. They're charging you. And then some of the new companies also charge you for taking your money from some other place to put it into their place. It's a nickel and dime scheme that's been going on for years. So there's a lot of times that I talk to people, they're like, I just changed jobs and I don't understand why my 401k balance is less now than what it was than what I even contributed at my previous company. And these are the reasons why. They nickel and dime me on fees. The vesting isn't quite what they expect it to be. And the match isn't near that 6% mark because they didn't read the fine print beyond that. The third facet of 401ks is the fees. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everything is exorbitant. Everything's got a fee, right? You pay their money and time. They all go together. And then to have someone who has a higher value costs more money. But that's not the case when it comes to 401ks. You're not getting a high value person to run your 401k. You typically talk to your HR rep who has no market analysis background whatsoever. That's how bad this is. That's just another red flag in my personal opinion. But when we dig into the fees, there are layers upon layers upon layers. When you read the documents that you get, you pretty much need a PhD in economics and finance to even understand most of it. And there's a reason for this, because initially when ERISA was passed and the 401k Act came out, they didn't disclose the fees. So people realized how much they were getting hosed. So Congress came back and said, well, you have to now explain the fees. Well, they've done that in technical jargon that none of us can really understand, especially the average Joe by far. I do a lot of reading on finance and I still don't understand all the details because the words and jargon varies, it's vague, all sorts of stuff. But the one most people see is the initial one. So your company works with the housing company of it. And their documents will say, well, we're only charging half a point. Yeah, that's just the icing on the cake. Because if you read further down, they say they send the money to somewhere else and that place can charge fees up to blah, 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 blah. That's just how it goes. So that person, the next layer, then charges fees for the transactions, for managing the money and so forth. And then every time they make a transaction, they charge. It's this vicious cycle. The reality is the average cost for a 401k account is 3%. So you have to look at the numbers not as a gross means. When you look at your statement, it says, oh, I have an average return of 10%. Well, if you have a 3% fee, your actually average return is 7%. That's not where you're wanting it to be. And the other part too is when it comes to money, it's not just what you make, it's what you keep. Remember, 401ks are tax deferred, and they're designed this way for a reason. They give us a penny in savings, but at the end they take a nickel, right? Because if you have 100 grand in your account at 65 and you start withdrawing it, you don't have 100 grand, you have 70, because Uncle Sam's taking their portion no matter what. And that's on a 30% average. And then of course it can vary state by state and everything else. But just to throw out numbers to understand is it's not even all yours anyways. So I hope you got a basic idea of what's really happening with your 401ks and the accounts and the cost and why the growth is so slow. And maybe you're a bit like me and you're like, there's got to be a better way. I personally feel there is. I like index universal life policies because you contribute to them after tax dollars and they get to grow tax free. You don't have any limitations on them. Like for withdrawals, you don't have to wait till 65. That's just me. I mean, if you want to keep learning more about those, just stay on the channel, keep subscribing. I'll show you a whole lot more on how those work. But this video ultimately was so you understand really what's happening when it comes to your 401ks.